Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Rabbi.
We are learning Parshas, this week's Parshas Beha'alotcha, and we're going to be starting Perek Tes, chapter 9, Pasuk Tesvav, verse 15. Uvayayim hakimes hamishkan, on the day that the Mishkan, the tabernacle, was erected, Kisa ha'ananas hamishkan, the cloud covered the Mishkan, lo'el ohidus, to the tent of testimony. Ube'erev yala Mishkan, in the evening there was on the Mishkan, Kamarei Eish ad boker, the appearance of fire until the morning. You had a cloud over the Mishkan by day and a fire over the Mishkan at night. The Ramban points out that when the Torah says the cloud covered the Mishkan, lo'oyel ha'edus, to the tent of testimony, it means to say that this cloud that covered the actual Mishkan, the structure itself. It didn't cover the chutzah, the courtyard. It covered the oyel ha'edus, the tent of the testimony. The tent being, so to speak, the building of the Mishkan, what we would call the kodesh, the sanctuary. That is what the cloud covered. It didn't cover the entire area of the Mishkan, which would included the chutzah, the courtyard, but it means that the cloud covered the tent, the Mishkan, the building itself. Okay. Keniyat Tamid, Pasuk continues, Tazayin. Keniyat Tamid, so it was always. Ha'anya Chasenu. The cloud covered it. Umare Eshlaila, and the appearance of fire at night. Now, Ulafiha Aloisa Anan Malo, and according to when the cloud rose up from being on top of the tent, before we continue, today's shir is dedicated in the memory of
Chaim ben Dun HaKohen.
Chaim ben Dun HaKohen, in the Shamash Havan Aliyah.
Amen.
Okay. Ulafiha Aloisa Anan Mal Ha'oyel, and according to when the cloud would rise up from upon the tent, after that, the Jewish people traveled. Meaning, how did they know when to travel? When they saw that the cloud lifted up, rose up from above the Mishkan. It rose up from the Mishkan. It was sitting on the Mishkan. Now it rose up from the Mishkan. That was a signal. It's time to start traveling. Get everything together. We're going. And eventually where now the cloud would then lead them through on their journey. And in the place where the tent would come to rest, Sham Yachnu B'nai Yisrael, that is where the Jewish people encamped. That's how they traveled. The cloud that was on the Mishkan, once it rose up, they knew it was time to go. They followed the cloud. Where the cloud came to rest, that is where they stopped. Pasuk Ches, verse 18. Al pi Hashem Yisu B'nai Yisrael, according by the command of Hashem, the Jewish people traveled. Al pi Hashem Yachanu, and by the command of God, they camped. The command was delivered through whatever the cloud was doing. All the days that the cloud rested on the Mishkan, they camped. And when the cloud remained on the Mishkan for many days, the Jewish people guarded the guarding of God, the charge of Hashem, and they didn't travel. Pasuk, verse 20. And then sometimes you'd have the cloud for a few days on the Mishkan. By the command of God, they camped. By the command of God, they traveled. Sometimes the cloud was there from evening until morning. And in the morning, the cloud would rise up and they'd go traveling again. Sometimes it was there for a day and a night. When the cloud rose up, they traveled. Sometimes it was there for 2 days. A month, a yamim, or a year. According to how long the Anan, the cloud, remained on the Mishkan to dwell on it, the Jewish people camped, they didn't travel. But when it rose up, that's when they traveled. By the command of God, they camped. By the command of God, they traveled. As Mishmeres Hashem Shamaru, they guarded the charge of Hashem. I mean, they guarded what Hashem told them to guard. Pi Hashem Yad Moshe, by the command of Hashem, by the command of Hashem through Moshe. Right? Sounds very repetitive. Now, the Ramban gives us a little bit more, it gives us some insight into what all these psukim are trying to convey. So let me read you how the Ramban explains it. So the Ramban starts on Pasuk Yates, where it says, when the cloud would remain for a long time. Says the Ramban, Loimar, this means to say, let's say the cloud remained on the Mishkan for many days. And it really wasn't a pleasant place for them to be. They did not enjoy being there. And they really, really wanted to leave there. Nonetheless, they would not go against the will of Hashem.
Why would they want to leave?
Because it was a terrible place to be.
But they have the like
that protected them. They didn't make it necessarily the most pleasant place to be. That's an interesting point you're bringing out. We think that, with the clouds that surrounded them and with the mun and with the water, it was like, being in Florida, all the time. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. They were protected, but it's pretty clear it still wasn't always so comfortable.
They still felt like the heat of the sun.
I don't know how bad it was because it says that the clouds protected them. So I don't know exactly how to describe, what could be. They were protected from the sun, from it being very, very hot. We're talking about a desert here, right? But it didn't make all of a sudden the desert look like this. There is Midrashim that say that wherever the water went, it watered the area and it grew greenery. So I'm not sure exactly how to make this work with all those Midrashim. But I think just from the point that we know that there were these 7 clouds and everything they had, it helped them survive. It helped them to be able to live. But it doesn't mean that the desert was this beautiful place to be hanging out in. And there could have been a certain level of discomfort, just that it was livable.
So that's why it keeps repeating that they
well, let's see. Now. So, but again, this is how the Ramban explaining. The Ramban is saying, and your point is a good point, but this is where I've seen this in other places also, other midrashim that seem to imply that this was not a pleasant place to be, the Midbar. It wasn't pleasant. And that's what he's saying. There could have been a certain spot that was really unpleasant. They really wanted to go, but without Hashem signaling to go, they didn't go. Okay. That's what it means. The Jewish people kept the charge of Hashem and didn't travel. Out of fear of God and keeping his commandments, they didn't travel. So too, let's say the cloud was there for 2 or 3 days. And they were really tired. They were really, really tired from their traveling. And all they had was, let's say, a respite for a couple of days. Nonetheless, if the cloud rose up to go, they followed. And that means they followed diligently. They followed without complaining. They followed. They did what they were supposed to do. It wasn't easy, but they did it. And then the pasuk continues more. Sometimes it only stayed there one night. And they traveled in the morning. That means that the cloud came to a stop at night. They slept through the night. They woke up in the morning to see the cloud had risen off of the Mishkan. It means it's time to go. They traveled in the morning, even though that was very difficult for them. You can imagine, you had only one night to sleep after traveling. It was very difficult for them to do. Clearly, it was a situation where they could grumble, maybe even rebel, but they didn't do it. The Ramban continues. Oh, here we go. Sometimes the cloud would remain for a day and a night. They travel the entire night. They can be traveling at night. If it was because when it's night, it was a fire. So you're able to see the way. They came there in the morning. The cloud rests there the entire day. And the whole night. And the next morning it would come up, it would rise up, rise up from the Mishkan, and they would travel. This is a bigger burden. This is more of a burden. This is more of an exertion than the first. Why? When you come, you travel at night. You settle by day, right? So the whole day you're there, and you go to sleep at night. So what do they think? They think they think there's a chance they're going to stay there. Ufarku agolos, so they unload the wagons. V'hinichu masam, and they put down and lay out everything that they have as people do when they finish traveling. But when the cloud goes up, you got to pack up everything again. And they don't even have a chance to go in and put themselves together. Okay, so you have a situation where, let's say, they travel by day. At night, the cloud stops. So it's night. You're not going to unpack. What do? You go to sleep. Okay, and the next morning it rises up. Not easy, but okay. At least we didn't unpack. But when, let's say, you travel through the night, and then you can't, but then you stop by day. And it didn't rise up at the end of the day. They're going to sleep, right? So you have the whole day there. So they think already, okay, you stop and you're stopping by day. What do? You start unloading. You start unpacking. You go to sleep. Wake up in the morning. You got to repack everything again. Or your mayim, Yisraelayla. Sometimes they stay there for 2 days and they travel by night. Okay, so he goes through all the different scenarios. He's saying this is all the psukim are giving all these scenarios to show the difficulty involved in following the lead of Hashem, but they did it anyway wholeheartedly.
So this is not a vacation.
Correct. And it could be that when the Torah gives all these examples were the examples of how this all manifested itself. These were how it came out. These were all the different variables of how they encamped and traveled. You have cases where the cloud remained from evening until morning. Day and a night. Sometimes 2 days. Sometimes a month and a year. That's why the Torah went through all these exact details. And there's actually a situation where they actually remained in one place for many years. When they came to a place called Kadesh, which was Kadesh was, I think, if I remember, that's where the Meraglim were sent from, or from that area. There, it's clear they were there for a very long time. They were there for many years. This is the one place that actually, of the 40 years that they traveled, they were there the longest. And actually, a big part of that period of time was in this place, Kadesh. But then you had all these other variables. So this whole parsha, this whole section of the parsha, the Ramban is telling us is to see how the Jewish people followed Hashem's lead, no matter how difficult it was. It could have been very difficult. It could have been very bothersome. It could have been very tiring, nonetheless. And it could have been they were stuck in a place what was very unpleasant to be. Nonetheless, the Torah says that they al pi Hashem yachanu, al pi Hashem yiso. By the command of Hashem, they camped. By the command of Hashem, they traveled. And although it was very difficult, they followed Hashem's lead. What Hashem wanted from them, that's what they did. Now, there's a very interesting comment from the Shalah. The Shalah is the acronym for the work called Shnei Luchai Sabris. Take the first 3 letters of those words, form the Shalah. The Shalah wrote the Shnei Luchai Sabris that encompasses many different topics, and it encompasses certain topics in halacha, certain topics in Musar. The Shalah was a Makubal, he was a Kabbalist. And based on this parsha, the Shalah says the following. And this is not exact, I don't know if this is an exact quote, but this is the idea found here in the Yalkut Lekach Tov. The Shalah says, Shal kol pula v'chol tnua she'adam reitz lasais. Anytime you want to do something, Yoima, you should say beforehand, before you want to do something, before you want to do something, before you say you're going to do something. What do you say? It's Hashem. If Hashem wants. For every act or movement a person wants to do, if Hashem wants it, with Hashem's help. Wasn't only in the midbar that they traveled and encamped by the command of Hashem, by the directive of Hashem. Every step that a person makes, it's based on Hashem's command. Hashem is deciding every step of the way that we take in life. That is happening based on Hashem's directive. Whether we're hearing a message or not all the time, at the end of the day, though, every step we make is based on what Hashem wants for us. It's going to be directed by Hashem. It can only happen if Hashem wants it, because there's nothing going on without the Rebbeinu Shalom. We're not people that are just doing things on our own. Every step of our lives is guided and directed by Hashem. So if you want to do something, and you realize that what I want to do really all depends if Hashem wants it. It all depends on what He wants, because everything in our lives is directed by Hashem. So that what do? You say, Amir Hashem, I'm going to New York. Oh yeah? How do you know? Amir Hashem, if Hashem wants, right? You're deciding if you go to New York. You're not deciding if you go to New York. Now, again, you have your free will. We're not going to get into the whole question of how does free will work. But at the end of the day, there is no step, there is no move that we can make without Hashem willing it. The same way they didn't travel without Hashem directing them, no step in life that we take isn't happening without Hashem's direction, with Hashem's guidance, with Hashem's will.
Even though we're not aware of it.
Even though we may not be aware of it. But the point is to be aware of it. Sometimes you won't be aware of it. But sometimes you're about to do something and you know you're going to do it, you should be saying to yourself or to others, I'll be doing it in Mirz Hashem, if Hashem wants.
What is the difference between this and mitzvahs?
What do you mean?
But mitzvahs there is commands what to do or not to do.
Yeah,
but
because
this
is whatever you're going to do. This is whatever you're going to do, whether it's Hashem, whether it's a mitzvah, whether it's a mitzvah is a direct thing that Hashem says, you need to do this. You need to put on tefillin. You need to keep Shabbos. And then there are things that Hashem doesn't tell us directly what to do, right? You decide. Are you going to New York? You're not going to New York. Are you gonna stay for Kiddush? You're not going to stay for Kiddush, There is no direct command, no direct specific command, you need to do this. But at the end of the day, whatever you decide to do is only going to happen based on Hashem's will that it should be that way. You're again like in this sense, you have the free will to decide what you're going to do. But whatever that you're going to do only is at the end of the day still being orchestrated by what Hashem wants from you and how Hashem is directing you. So you may not going to hear that. You're not going to hear. There is no direct message from Hashem to say do this. But at the end of the day, you realize that whatever you choose to do can only happen if Hashem wills it, because every step that we're taking is being directed by Hashem. Now, and whenever a person says these words, he says, don't just say it, say it with meaning. You got to say it with meaning. Say it with thought. Put some thought into it. Not just, habit. I'm going to Hashem, whatever, right? You could put in the word whatever instead of Mirz Hashem. The point is, when you say it with meaning. By doing this, he now instills in himself, and he integrates and he internalizes in his heart these principles of our faith that Hashem runs everything in our lives. When you do that, you're being blessing on yourself. What blessing? The blessing could be that if you say, Mirz Hashem, I want to do this, you'll be blessed to be successful. If for whatever reason Hashem decides that maybe what you decided to do won't be successful, but if you did it because you accept that, if you did it understanding whatever happens is the will of Hashem, you get blessed from somewhere else for it. But the point is that although we don't have Hashem telling us, do this, at the end of the day, whatever we decide to do can only happen if this is what Hashem wants. and and only if Hashem wants it, because whatever it is that we do is part of the plan that Hashem has for us.
But this is case you approved any criminal action.
No.
No, I did it because
The criminal action that you did, right? If you got away with it, then it was Hashem's will that it should happen. But at the end of the day, you're still responsible for it. No one's saying that you don't have free will
why not?
because you. What do you mean? Why not?
No, but if
Why not what?
If I go to New York because he wants me to go, this is what is different.
The difference is that if I go to New York, right? So if he wants me to go, I will go.
Yeah.
If he doesn't want me to go, he'll make it that I don't go.
This is saying he want me to kill.
Not if you want me to kill. It could very it's your choice whether you want to kill or not. That's you make the choice. Now, at the end of the day, whether you're successful or not, right? Don't say I'm going to kill this guy. Don't say that. Okay. But the point is that
not any action to be.
There are actions that Hashem said don't do, but you still have a free will to do it. Right? Hashem said don't do it, but you still have a free will to do it. And even that, at the end of the day, will only happen if Hashem wants it to happen. The point is also, but the point
not necessary through you.
Whatever, right? We're getting into that into that whole discussion. But the point is that whatever it is, it's in the most basic level, right? Whatever it is that you're planning on doing, it's not in your hand whether it's going to happen, whether you're going to be able to do it or not. You have the choice, right? And the more you understand that all you have is the choice, that you're not going to be the one that's going to determine whether you can do it, because that determination comes from Hashem. That's all a part of Hashem's plan for every single person, what he does in every step. Therefore, if you have that realization, then you are following the principles of faith that we're supposed to have, and you bring blessing. Now, they bring down here a story from what's called Eitzer HaMidrashim. When we talk about Medrash, there are different forms of Medrash. There's Medrash Rabbah. There are different Midrashim, and there are certain Midrashim that appear that we don't know exactly where they come from, but they're sourced. So there's something called Eitzer HaMidrashim, which means the treasury of Midrashim. It brings down the following story. There was a rich man. He was about stuck. He was very charitable. He was a good person. But one thing he had a problem with. He really wasn't into this, stuff that, every move I make is going to be determined by Hashem. He wasn't into that. He believed he was a good person. He gave tzedakah. He got mitzvahs. But the idea that he wasn't in charge of his own fate, that was something that he wasn't comfortable with. Okay. And he really thought that at the end of the day, what it is that he wants to do is in his hands. So the story goes, this is the story from the Medrash. One day he went to the marketplace. He wanted to buy some oxen. Okay. And on the way, who did he meet? Elijah the prophet. Now, he didn't know it was Elijah the prophet. Elijah the prophet was disguised like a merchant. So this merchant, who's really a Navi, asked him, where are you going? So the man answered, I'm going to the marketplace to buy oxen. So the man said to him, say Emeretz Hashem. Say if Hashem wills, or if Hashem decrees it. And the man was like, yeah, whatever. He didn't go for it. Okay. He said, look, I got the money in my pocket and I'm on my way. It'll happen. I can take care of it. Elio told him, you know what? You're not going to succeed. All right. So the merchant, this person wants to buy the oxen. He's on his way. And as he's going to the marketplace, what happens? His wallet falls out of his pocket. Loses his wallet. Eliyahu Navi, takes the wallet, goes deep into the forest, puts it on a rock where it's a forest where nobody goes, leaves it on a rock. The man comes to the marketplace, chooses the oxen. Those are good. He takes them, sticks his hand in his pocket. No money. All right. He really disappointed. He goes home. Okay. Goes home to get more money. Goes out again to the marketplace to buy the oxen. This time, Eliyahu appears to him like an elderly man. And the man says, where are you going? He says, I'm going to the marketplace to buy the oxen. The elderly man says, you're going to the marketplace to buy oxen in Emeretz Hashem, right? say Eretz Hashem. And again, it doesn't go for that. No, he still thinks that, that he can determine his fate. Okay, so what happens? He gets very, very tired. Very tired. So tired he has to just like lay down where he is and go to sleep. Okay? The elderly man goes over to his pocket, takes out the wallet, goes back to Eliyahu goes back to the same place where the first wallet was, puts it down there. The man wakes up. He was robbed. He was robbed. Okay. After these two stories, the man starts thinking to himself, maybe there is something going on here. Maybe there really is something. Maybe I really should be learning my lesson and realizing that I don't determine my fate. It's all in Hashem. It's up to Hashem if he wants it or not. So he goes out a third time. The third time he meets a young boy. Eliyahu Navi disguised as a young boy. Young boy says to him, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to the marketplace to buy oxen in Mitzvah Hashem." That's what he says. So the young boy, again, it's Eliyahu Navi, says, "Oh, I wish you a lot of bracha and atzlacha. And you know what? If you succeed, let me know, because I'll maybe you can hire me to lead your oxen, to help you bring your oxen home." And he says, "Okay." He says, "Yep. If Hashem helps me buy the oxen, I'm going to go ahead and let you know." Fine. He gets the oxen. He goes ahead, beautiful animals. He pays, and he hires a young boy to lead them. As the oxen are going home, they break out. They start running away. They run away into the forest. So the person, he's running after his oxen to catch them. And then the oxen stop. Where do they stop? By the rock where the two wallets are. And that and this is again where the man now realizes, everything that happened. Okay? So the Socha rejoices, he got his money, he thanks Hashem, he continues back home. When he gets home, he turns around to pay the young boy, and it's gone. And the Medrash says he set upon himself the following pasuk: Ish bar lo yeda, a foolish man, a boorish man who doesn't know, and a fool who doesn't understand this. Meaning, this is what he was. Until now, he was a boor. He was a fool. He was ignoring the truth. But now he realized it. So this is the medrash that brings out, I don't know if the Shalah had this medrash, but this is the idea. The idea is that no one determines their own fate. And they need, every time that the opportunity to remind themselves of that comes, they need to do it. They need to say Eretz Hashem, Bezras Hashem, and say it and really say it with meaning. Because the more you do it, the more you internalize this principle of Amunah, and with that, a person merits bracha. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you, Ron.
Listen.